이거 꺼달라고. 아, 그래? 아, 꺼달라고요? 딴 사람이 이렇게 하는 거.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on where you're joining us today from around the world. I am Dr. Amy Hohotl, and I'm the director of the global program at Connected Places Catapult. And I'm very pleased to welcome all of you to today's launch event of the UK South Korea Innovation Report. Welcome, everyone. We are very honored to have representatives of both national governments in the UK and South Korea, and also representation from cities, local councils, universities, innovation agencies, and trade and investment bodies from across the UK and South Korea. This is a 2-hour event, and it will be recorded. Please select the language that you would like to listen to using the interpretation button on the bottom right-hand screen of your Zoom screen. If everyone can take a look, you'll see a globe, and you can select the language that you'd like to listen to the presentation in. Very good. And I'd also like to say a very big thank you to the UK Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, BEIS, for funding phase 2 of the project. The funding coming from the Global Research and Innovation Program Fund. And also thank you to Innovate UK, the UK's innovation agency, as well as their sister organization in Korea, KAIA, South Korea's innovation agency. Thank you to all of you. The objective of today's event is to launch the report from phase 1 of our project. Now we're currently running phase 2, but we wanted to give you the evidence base for phase 1 of our work around twinning UK and South Korean cities. So during the event, you'll learn about innovation twins and the approach to twinning, how we promote research and innovation collaborations with long-term ambition of promoting bilateral trade and investment and shared socioeconomic prosperity. We think that pairing cities is the best way to create this long-term relationship, both between our two countries and with cities across those countries. Now you'll find out more about the methodology applied in this report and identifying high potential pairings. You'll also hear from cities Belfast and Xihong, who are now working on phase 2, the pilot project for this partnership. The event is structured in 3 parts. We'll hear from the national organizations, and then a detailed overview of our innovation twins from the report and the methodology. And then we'll bring in a spotlight on the core cities that are currently involved in the programming. Now I'd like to open today's session by welcoming Professor Paul Monks for some opening remarks. Professor Paul Monks is the Chief Scientific Advisor of the Department for Business, Energy and the Industrial Strategy. He's also, he's not with us today. We'll hear a recorded message from Professor Monks. But Professor Monks is one of the foremost scientists in smart cities, as well as climate change, as well as air quality. Professor Monks has been a big champion of the work across the UK and South Korea and the evidence base that underpins the twinning of cities. So I'd like to welcome our technical team to please play the video of the opening remarks for Professor Paul Monks.
Hello, I'm Professor Paul Monks, the Chief Scientific Advisor at the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. And I'm pleased to be able to join you today for this UK Career Innovation Launch event. Data-driven approaches to pairing cities are an incredibly important part of our innovation potential. This has already been shown actually between the pilot city pairing of Belfast and Xihong. Belfast, with its long history of innovation and ambition, homes to the Queen's University, which produces world-class research, and Xihong, a city with smart city design at its very core from its founding in 2007. Urbanisation is sweeping the globe. Today, over half the world's population lives in urban areas, and by 2050 that number is predicted to go to 70%. This represents both an enormous challenge for urban planning, but also a significant opportunity using technology and data to improve the lives of urban populations and tackle some of the most difficult challenges that we face. We can use technology, from vehicle technology to optimise refuse collection. Smart city solutions can serve to reduce some of the most serious contributors to climate change, getting us closer to net zero. The development and optimization of urban analytics and systems will also aid us in identifying and anticipating the need for more citizen-oriented services, including smarter targeted healthcare and services for the elderly and enhanced emergency services. This report by the Connected Places Catapult and partners offers a creative new method for partnering cities across our borders, connect our officials, researchers and innovators for considerable local and bilateral benefit. This is a key part of our UK innovation strategy, which looks to ensure that our research, development and innovation institutions look to fulfil the needs of businesses and people across the whole of the UK. And that innovation strategy marks out 7 technology families that will receive greater support, many of which are critical to achieving truly smart cities of the future. We can hope that we can work with you on the development and delivery of those technologies and think about the way that we can, through bilateral relationships, develop that. I look forward to seeing the project progress and seeing the findings of the report effectively deployed in the Belfast and Xihong pilot. And as Phase 2 expands further, I hope this project will help to foster further city relationships that support high quality innovation collaborations to mutual UK-South Korea benefit that exemplifies our values of strong international collaboration. To that end, I would encourage other cities and interested parties in the UK and South Korea to get in touch with the Connected Places Catapult to find out how they can become more involved in the project. Finally, I would like to thank Kaya for their strong contribution to the development of this report, and I wish to thank and indeed congratulate the cities of Belfast and Xihong for taking part in the Lighthouse project. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Professor Paul Monks, our Chief Scientific Advisor, and also thank you to BAYES for supporting the work of this project. We're now going to get the view from national development in both countries. We'll hear from Dr. James Taplin, who is the lead technologist at Innovate UK, and we'll hear from Dr. Cho, who is the leading senior research fellow at Kaya, the Kaya Agency for Innovation Technology Advancement. Can I welcome Dr. James Taplin to the stage, please? James, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Amy. Hello, everybody. It's lovely to see you all virtually. Thank you for being here. As Amy says, indeed, I'm Dr. James Taplin. So I lead on our International Cities Innovation Programme. Can you go to the next slide, please? So Innovate UK, just for kind of context, one of the reasons why we're speaking here today, as Dr. Heidel said earlier, is we funded the first phase of this. So I wanted to set out a little bit about who we are and why we're interested in this work and where we hope it's going to go next. So we're the UK's Business Innovation Agency, but we sit within this wider group of businesses, agencies that you can see here, called UK Research and Innovation. So as well as the Business Innovation Agency, which is who we are, these are the other research agencies, and our goal as UK Research and Innovation is to link UK's leading cutting-edge global research with our businesses to create significant change. Next slide, please. So as we heard from Professor Monks a moment ago, there's a new national innovation strategy, and recently we've published our own innovation strategy which responds to that, and this sets out some of the key themes and the foundations that they're built on. I'm not going to go through them all because you can see the slides later, and I'm very happy to follow up, but I think it's important to note that we've got right in the center here, we've got global opportunities, which is one of the reasons clearly we're here today. And those global opportunities are built on strong foundations of place and leveling up. You can see at the bottom right. So this is sort of the work we're doing here today is bang on our new innovation strategy. Next slide, please. So I was actually asked to talk about smart city developments. I think there's probably others on this call who are better placed to do that, and I think we're going to hear from some cities later, but I wanted to give a little bit of context. So Manchester was the world's first industrial city, with all the increase in complex city challenges that brought, and that are still familiar with us today. So problems like housing, transport needs, air pollution, food logistics, water, waste management, skills and education, and so on. So we've been wrestling with optimizing places and meeting citizens' complex needs for arguably longer than anyone here. Next slide, please. Cities that thrive have always needed to be smart in some sort of way. So in as much as that smartness means that they can meet their citizen needs. So and by meeting their citizen needs, they've been able to provide surpluses of time and resources, which enable the physical and social growth, and which then in turn open creative spaces for culture and innovation to flourish. So our current smart cities really aren't very different from previous iterations. They just have an updated suite of tools to work with. And these tools, particularly the digital tools, which we're all very familiar with, provide a much faster and more granular understanding of what the city and its people need at any moment, and also city opportunities to optimize them in real time. Next slide, please. So I don't think there's, to that end then, there really hasn't been sort of a centralized smart city strategy that I want to point to. But instead, I think I want to talk about three things that we are particularly interested in, which we've been supporting in our own smart cities work over the last sort of 10 years or so. And the first of that is around system integration. So, I mean, as we've sadly seen recently in stark detail, the systems that society is built on are highly entangled. COVID and coronavirus has shown us that this is the case the world over. A perturbation in the health system has had devastating knock-on impacts on transport, food, work, logistics, manufacturing, energy, etc. systems. And these affect rural and urban places alike. But I think the difference really is that in urban situations, the entangled knots are packed tighter with less slack or less freedom to operate. Cities historically have very often operated their infrastructure in silos for some very good reasons, legacy reasons. But that's the result has been that they've often antagonized or undermined one another. And over the last years, with increased data and analytical tools, places have instead looked to optimize across systems and to make investments in one system that also reinforce another. And this is a trend which is only set to continue, and which we're encouraging with the funding that we're handing out. Next slide, please. In the second key element that we're looking at, and this will come as no surprise to anybody, is around collaborations. But increasingly and importantly, I think this isn't just collaborations between businesses and places, but it's collaborations with citizens as well. It's ultimately people that make changes, and it's people that buy and implement solutions. So if you don't really understand what people's genuine needs are, the chances are you're not going to have a market for the solutions that you're providing. We've seen that a lot in previous years with lots of solutions in search of a home. So I think to make lasting changes and strengthen success of places, you can't just do things to people, you have to do things with people, or do them for them, but be clear on what people really want. And if you're gonna get that right. Next slide, please. And I think, so the third thing that we're particularly focusing on in sort of the next 4 years and onwards is this big overarching challenge of net zero places. And this is a common unifying cause the world over, really. There's a need for everybody everywhere to play their part and to do that rapidly. And this can be done more effectively, clearly, by learning from one another. And the solutions that are created from solving similar challenges in slightly different ways can make those solutions more resilient. So I'm very interested in how, as I said earlier, city challenges are fairly similar the world over in terms of their fundamentals, but how Belfast solves a particular challenge and how Xihong solves the same challenge may be slightly different. And if you bring those innovative solutions together, they create something which is greater than the sum of its parts, which is arguably more resilient because it's been tested in a wider range of circumstances, and is also then more likely to be able to be applied elsewhere in onward markets, and so to get that kind of that scale and that reach that we're looking for. So next slide, please. That brings me to the end, really. I think all of what I've talked about, I guess, is why I'm so excited by this work, and why we can support it to go further. I think building these international links is critical if we're going to solve those three big challenges I was talking about net zero, collaboration, system change. And I think the work that has gone on already and the work that's ongoing now is very exciting in addressing the next stage of that. And for our own part, we're going to look for the next 3 or 4 years about how we can actively build on that, how we can create more of these innovation twin solutions, how we can help to pilot and demonstrate solutions, and how we can build a thriving network of innovation twinning. So thank you very much.
Thanks so much, James. That was very insightful. I think what's really important here is reinforcing the message that linking research to business really creates that change. And when we think about leveling up, whether that's in the UK or South Korea, we're all looking at leveling up. We've been tackling these same issues for some time. Professor Monks outlined the urban challenge as well. And both of you have outlined that technology and innovation can be put forward as a solution, but it's critical that that's done with people in collaboration. And James, I think the 3 points you made around system integration, that we can no longer do this in silo. And that was really shown to us very clearly when COVID hit and we all needed to work remotely on a shared digital foundation. Collaboration, that we're no longer going to achieve any of these goals, whether it's city leveling up or your next point of net zero, unless we're working in collaboration. So I think the key point really, we need to learn from each other. For this next phase of evolution of our cities, we can no longer think about an environment of competition. We need to think of an environment of collaboration. So thank you so much for that, Dr. Taplin. And next, I'd like to welcome my good friend and colleague, Dr. Cho from KAIA, who's a senior research fellow with the organization, the Korean Agency for Infrastructure Technology Advancement. Welcome, Dr. Cho.
Okay. Good morning and good afternoon. Hello, everyone. I'm Daeun Jo. I am the former Chief Director of Korean National Strategic Smart City Program. And now I am a Senior Research Fellow on New Technology Certification Center of KAIA. It is a great honor for me to provide a presentation on Korean Smart City Development Strategy through this opportunity. I congratulate on publishing this innovation twin program of UK and SK, and I am pleased to meet all of my UK friends once again virtually. As you know, Korea has gone through severe fluctuation in urbanization. Especially Korea has initiated the smart city model. As you know, we call it U-City for the first time in the world in 2004. We experienced the transformation in phases from the U-City model to data-driven smart city. Recently, Korea is carrying out the third phase new town projects for overcoming the shortage of housing, where the various smart city solutions and high technologies will be introduced. Strategically, our government pursued becoming the first runner globally in smart city area. The goal of Korean smart city strategy is to improve quality of citizens' life, build up inclusive and resilient city, and spur up creating smart city ecosystem. To make this happen, national pilot smart cities projects in Sejong and Busan district have been launched in 2018. In addition, Smart City R&D program and Smart City Challenge program projects have been designed and performed. Until now, a number of Korean cities are adopting various smart city programs. In 2021, more than 100 cities are equipped with the integrated operating platform for city surveillance and monitoring to tackle urban problems. I will explain more details about Korean smart city examples in the next slides. Smart City Challenge program has been started since 2019. Smart City Challenge program is based upon a bottom-up approach where local governments make a proposal, the best of which might be selected by merit. Among 2019 awarded cities of Incheon, Bucheon, and Daejeon, I will briefly introduce the case of Incheon. Incheon is trying to solve the accessibility to public transport and station. This private-public consortium has devised the multimodal solution to connect each mode of transport in a seamless and integrated manner. A citizen can plan and reserve on-demand trip easily and pay the fee by any device at any place. For example, one guy can choose the optimal trip route in comparing various options of time, cost, distance, etc. We call it intermodal solution, IMOD, which is the type of MaaS, mobility as a service. I welcome the collaboration between Belfast and Sejong. For the national pilot program implementation of Sejong, it took a year and a half to complete the overall land utilization plan for the mixed use to adopt new mobility option and innovation district. For the next generation of mobility in Sejong 5-1 living zone, the sharing mobility and autonomous shuttle bus will be introduced, and integrated mobility services will be provided after 2023. For the total energy management of this zone, James mentioned about the natural places. We're thinking about it. The integrated platform will be developed on which the data from buildings, housings, and other facilities will be gathered and analyzed. The residents will be informed the volume of energy consumption in real time. In the case of Busan, the project developer and enabler groups will be determined next year. Basically, the master plan of Busan EDC Eco Delta City was established based on the conceptual robotic and augmented city. We call it platform city. Busan EDC is pursuing the water circularity of city. The highlight of data-driven smart city comes from the national strategic smart city program, where the smart city data hub model has been developed and demonstrated. Total cost of this program is about 83 million pounds, and this project initiated in 2018 and might be finished in 2022. The concept of smart city data hub is the fundamental infrastructure to connect the physical infrastructure to public-private services through digital space where big data platform, artificial intelligence, digital twin, and cloud computing, etc. are activated. The representative data sets are energy, mobility, environment, and administrative data. This slide shows the architecture model of Smart City Data Hub, which is composed of data ingest module, data management module, service module, security module, infrastructure module, etc. In National Strategic Smart City Program, a number of use cases are demonstrated in Daegu and Xihong through the application of the core technologies of Smart City Data Hub developed. This slide shows the mechanism of this program. Daegu is pursuing the first integrated data-driven smart city model in Korea, and Xihong has a goal to open the market, digital marketplace model of smart city. As you know, fortunately, this smart city data hub model was successfully applied for the protection against COVID-19 last year. This data hub has contributed as the core technology to develop the epidemiological investigation support system, shortly EISS. By use of EISS, our KCDC has dramatically shortened the tracing time of a confirmed patient from 1 day to 10 minutes. This slide shows the layout of Daegu Smart City Data Hub Center model, which is capable of connecting the regular systems and public data to manage the city efficiently and effectively. In Daegu, a number of test sites are scattered around the city for the pilot test of safety surveillance, energy dashboard, fine dust protection, mobility monitoring, etc. The optimal route for the public bus and subway passage can be analyzed by use of data gathered from bus terminals, traffic condition, and the moving time of travelers. This slide shows the model of Xihong Data Hub, which is trying to combine the public and private data. In Xihong, a number of innovation districts or clusters have been planned and constructing. Several living lab models of environment, healthcare, and others are implemented. These zones are broadly adopting the smart city infrastructure, living labs, and the data marketplaces. Our government is focusing on the usage of personal data and elevation of strict regulation. The law of smart city was established in 2008, and the regulatory sandbox program has been started in 2019. This seminar is for the international collaboration. So our government aims to promote for Smart City international collaboration programs such as World Smart City Expo, K-City Network Global Cooperation Program, and like this Innovation Twin Program. The autonomous driving city is the next version of Smart City. For this, our government has invested to build up the demonstration site, which is called K-City, and testify the autonomous bus in Seoul, Pangyo, and Sejong. New Mammoth R&D program has been initiated since 2021 and will finish in 2027. The budget of this program is about $1 billion. This slide shows the layout of K-City Hwasong, located in the southern part of Gyeonggi province. Finally, to prepare for carbon neutral era, hydrogen city model is being designed with the pilot study in Ulsan, Ansan, and Jeonju. This model shows the comprehensive hydrogen city. The small-scale version of a hydrogen bus, car, and charging station is partly demonstrated in our country. I think the wide range of technologies and systems, for example, data hub, smart infrastructure, digital twin, energy management system, and so on, that have been developed so far, will be applied to this hydrogen city. This is the end of my presentation. It's a very short time, so but I personally welcome UK-Korea Innovation Twin Program, Korean experience and lessons learned from the past smart city activities, and the scientific power of UK will be the catalyst to solidify the relationship between UK and Korea. I am always open to discuss with UK and Korean friends for the advanced model of smart city and evolutionary industrial ecosystem. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cho. 감사합니다. 감사합니다. Thank you. Dr. I think a couple of things I just wanted to highlight about what you said, Dr. Cho. I think it's really interesting that your presentation around the journey that Korean cities have been on really mirrors James' presentation. We start with looking at industrial cities and our evolution to new cities and smart cities and innovation cities. And you gave a brilliant example across so many cities in Korea around that systems integration piece. Regardless of what sector, whether it was transport or energy, or it's about systems integration. And I think that you also covered that collaboration piece as well, talking about public-private partnerships, talking about international collaboration, and really the need that all of this is driven by your #1 point on your first slide, improving quality of life. And that's really, we can talk about technology and data all day long, and I'm sure many of us on this call could talk about it all day long, but in the end, this is about improving the quality of life. And then, of course, your last point about moving to net zero, and that's also a shared responsibility that all of us have. So, Dr. Cho, thank you. 감사합니다. Very pleased to have you here today. And for part 2 of our presentation, I'd like to hand it over to my colleague, Andrew Coburn, who is the head of global business at Connected Places Catapult. Andrew, over to you.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for today's event. And thank you so much for the fantastic speakers so far, talking about this really interesting program. So it's my pleasure to introduce the next 2 presentations to you. So we're going to hear the first presentation about the Innovation Twins approach, an overview, and a quick few words on the current Belfast and Xihong Lighthouse, and that'll be presented by Dr. Amy Hohodl. And then after that, we're going to move on to a presentation from Dr. Tim Moonen, from our good friends and partners at the Business of Cities. And he's going to talk a bit about the methodology used to identify and match high potential city pairings in the UK and South Korea. And following that, I'm going to invite the audience to ask some questions. So please do take this opportunity. You've got 2 fantastic speakers here. I'd like to ask if you can, as they're presenting, drop your questions into the chat box. I'll then pick them up, and at the end of Dr. Tim Moonen's presentation, we'll have a session of some questions for both presenters. So the floor is now yours, Amy. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. So I wanted to give you an overview of the report and the idea of innovation twinning. So what we're talking about all morning and our partnerships between the UK and Korea are all about this concept of innovation twinning of cities. If we could go to my slides, please. So over the past year, we've been working with cities all across the UK and all across Korea to look at how we can learn from each other, how we can scale up solutions, and how we can create long-term partnerships that are driven by research and development. Next slide. So we really had to think about, how do we twin cities? Now there's the traditional way of twinning cities that was very important around cultural exchanges and knowledge exchange and student exchange. But with the challenges we're facing today that Professor Monks and Dr. Taplin and Dr. Cho highlighted around systems integration and collaboration in these areas, really looking at net zero, we had to rethink, is there a way that we can twin cities that can help us achieve these new goals? And so when we're looking at this, we looked across 3 areas. We know that cities are home to economic growth. So there's a national strategy and agenda for growth, but that's really delivered at the city. Cities are the engine of economic growth in our countries. And that's where we're seeing the emerging technology demonstrated on the ground that can help us with some of these challenges. We also know that traditional research and innovation can be difficult when it's managed at a national level, because we're demonstrating these and implementing these opportunities at a local level. So really driving that research and development at the national level, but creating the partnerships that can help us deliver it for leveling up of our cities. And then third, we know that partnering cities drives long-lasting relationships. So we know that cities that have partnerships with other cities tend to endure with those relationships, have bilateral business engagement, growth, continue after a program like this has ended. Those relationships last, they continue. And so we think it's really critical that if we're going to look at things like new jobs, opening new market access, whether that's for Korean businesses or for UK businesses, looking at bilateral long-term business relationships and really driving prosperity, especially during a post-COVID recovery, it's really critical that we create these really strong bonds between cities to drive innovation. If you can go to my next slide, please. I'll tell you a little bit about why these 2 countries, why we've found that they are a really perfect match for looking at cities. And I think nobody made that case better than Dr. Taplin and Dr. Cho, whose presentations really mirrored each other. When you show the journey that we've both been on from industrial cities through to smart and integrated cities, both of our countries have a very strong track record in innovation. We also both have very high skilled workforces and leading in universities. And so if we can put the right types of structures in place, and then we have the support of our national governments, represented there, Mullet, Bays, Kaya, IUK, then we can really start to drive these relationships that can tackle those issues through collaboration. Next slide, please. So how does this work? We've talked a lot about we're launching phase 1. What is phase 1? And that we're now live with phase 2, and that there's a phase 3. So the idea here is that we create that ecosystem of innovation across the cities. And again, both James and Dr. Cho talked about the need for technology and business, industry, city, academia, and underlying all of that, involving citizens in the process. And so we start with phase 1, which is what we've done over the past year, working in partnership with across Korean cities and our partners there, evidence gathering and looking at how do we pair up cities? What is the modern way? The indicators that we need to look at to make these successful, given the challenges we're facing today. So we spent the past year developing an evidence base for city pairing. Now, you'll find that phase 2, we're testing out that evidence base with Xihong and Belfast as a lighthouse project, but that's really so that we can scale it up across multiple cities in the UK and Korea. And really this can be whole regional programs. So once we've gathered the evidence base and really understood why cities make good matches, and Tim will tell you a little bit more about that after I speak, then we're testing it out through the Lighthouse Project. Once we've tested that out, we really want to scale this up. We want this to move across UK cities. We want this to move across Korean cities. We want to see multiple areas of collaboration across different sectors and different cities. So it's a 3-step process. We're telling you about our journey now through phase 1, and I'll tell you briefly about the journey into phase 2. and then through to phase 3. Next slide, please. So this is a little bit about looking inside that engine and how it works. So you have a lot of industry collaboration. None of this happens naturally. It needs to be facilitated. It needs an enabler. And right now, cities are really acting as that enabler. So if we can help foster that environment where cities are driving industry collaboration and they're driving academia and research and development, and they're driving tech hubs and entrepreneurs to demonstrate these and test them and refine them and scale them, that's really how this engine works. And it's all happening at the city level. What we see coming out of that engine are lots of various activities that help drive growth. So we see city to city agreements. Out of phase 2, we'd really like to see a lot of agreements between Belfast and Xihong working together over the years to come. We would see formation of joint ventures. We'd find that Korean businesses find synergy with UK businesses and want to form partnerships with their businesses. A lot of times when you see that, you see new companies spinning out. So not only do we want to grow our existing companies, but we'd like to see new companies. When we see new companies, then we start to see new products being developed. And when we see new products being developed, we see an increased funding for research and development. So you can see how this grows a process and starts to expand. To look at some of the longer term goals that we would all like to see around increased trade and investment, those partnerships that will endure past pilot program and really create strong research and development moving into the future. We want to see those translating into new jobs. That's both across the UK and across Korea, especially in a post-COVID era. Increased employment and increased prosperity is really a focus of the work that we're doing. And we want to open that market access. So we are really pleased for this next phase of our work together to be opening the Korean market to UK businesses that want to come and partner, as well as we're opening the UK market to Korean businesses. And to start, that will be between Xihong and Belfast. And that helps to facilitate the entry of those businesses into those new markets. So it makes it easier to find partners, form joint ventures, and do that bilateral business activity. And of course, again, this is all about post-COVID recovery. And we want to create that economic prosperity that we can with post-COVID recovery. So on to my next slide, please. So we are now starting this project with Xihong and Belfast. I won't say too much about this. This program is just launched now. Tim will give you a bit of a sense of why Xihong and Belfast have come out of this as the 2 pilot projects, but really some of it is science. Some of it is people that raised their hand. Both Belfast and Xihong were first to say, we want to form a partnership. And that's always a critical indicator as in addition to pairing of those very scientific and data-driven indicators, you need people that have the same ambition. And so as we move forward over the next year, you'll see Belfast and Xihong undergoing a series of activities together where they will hold workshops, they will share knowledge with each other, they will share business practices, they will both be testing, physically testing the learnings on the ground through demonstrations, and then we'll be assessing that so that we can scale that up across cities broader than Belfast and Xihong as well. And next slide, I believe is that my last slide. Yes, thank you. So I just wanted to give you an overview. What's this concept of innovation cities? What does it look like? We're looking underneath the hub, and then what's next for Belfast and Xihong? And I hand it back over to you, Andrew.
Thank you so much, Amy. That was fantastic. A really good strategic approach that you highlighted. There's a real golden thread running through that national government policy down to local government being empowered and how to tap into the potential of the local level innovation ecosystem. And I'm really excited about how you're examining how cities can be active players in creating and shaping innovation and kind of the power that collaborating globally can have. So moving swiftly on because we have another 25 minutes. I'm really excited to hear from Dr. Tim Moonen about the methodology underpinning this program. So the digital floor is yours, Tim.
Thank you. You can hear me okay. Great to be here and to embark on a whistle-stop tour of the methodology, building on what Dr. Cho has explained and Amy has very clearly laid out just a moment ago. It was inspired and, in a certain sense, informed by a desire to do four things. And I'm going to try to change slides, and it seems to work. First one is really to understand what exactly is it that in particular really needs of the cities that are participating within them. What exactly is the relationships that are required when an innovation twin is concerned, and what does it cities that are most well placed to take part in them. The second question is really how well equipped are different cities to do this, and it's a particular kind of endeavor, as I think Amy explained very well, and cities have the capacity, have the resource, have the long-term vision and direction to really embark on this. There's a question, isn't there, about which cities have the appetite. In a way, as Amy mentioned, there's a big, not every city at every moment in its cycle has the appetite, the ability to pay attention, the track record that it is engaging in these sorts of partnerships. That has to be a factor. And then in a certain way, where are the industry strengths, the project ambitions that cities have at particular moments in their journey? And in what ways can we see the overlaps and the synergies there? It was very work that we are looking here at two national systems of cities with remarkable overlaps and similarities, population size and character of the primary, but also the secondary and third tier cities within each nation. Systems of cities that have become a long period in the last 15 or 20 years of metropolitan reform, new innovations, in-house strategies are mounted and developed. And of course, a whole host of different kinds of innovations where both Korean cities and UK cities in separate domains have become the really inspiring examples from Dr. Cho. We can also think of in UK cities context, examples of how cities have really developed an international investment base, have built really collaborative governance economy in the second and third tier cities that has a real enterprise focus. The role of the city centre as a galvanizing location of change. These are places where the UK has really succeeded. And we see a lot of complementarity between, if you like, the South Korean city appetite to support its world-class smaller businesses and enterprises to go international with existing business expertise and the shared desire that there is to really reform urban systems, innovation districts, and future-proof from both a demographic point of view, but also an economic, spatial, physical, and of course, net zero point of view. So much around which one can build an innovation twin enduring. And we have also seen through all of the conversations and the data that we have reviewed, that there is this real appetite to work at this city to city, perhaps even ecosystem to ecosystem level, and really explore local opportunities, certain districts, and in a way there's a recognition. I hope that you can hear me okay. Let me know if I may drop out my audio if that's causing a slight lag. Is Andrew, are you able to hear me?
Tim, we can hear you, but perhaps you can switch off the video. Your network is a bit patchy.
Okay. I cannot see the video options on here. I'm just wondering if I can, you've stopped my video.
I stopped your video, yes.
Okay, Apologies. Hopefully that's improving the audio that you can capture. Let me know if it's not the case. Otherwise, I'll keep going. So really, the idea of this research approach has very much been about understanding what's worked between UK and Korean cities in their international engagements and relationships, and weigh what the overlaps are between partnerships that do succeed and do work. And thirdly, really looking at all of the data, all of the analysis that and what cities have a commensurate level of capability and ambition, because what we really learned in all of the engagement with cities and their partners operating in universities, in business, in the city governments themselves, is that actually it's really essential when you're cities that have a comparable level of expectation, an appropriate level of resource, similar level of ambition. You need champions within government, but also outside of government. You need a particular kind of exchange and opportunity that you can agenda around. Just be in theory, it has to be in practice. And it's about understanding and looking for ways you can crowd in multiple stakeholders, multiple motives, multiple reasons for this innovation twin to last, to evolve into a new cycle of opportunities. So in a way, what we've observed in this work is that there are three core ways in which one has to look at opportunity. Those cities that have similarities in performance, those cities that have similar appetites to go global and to internationalize and to really build partnerships in that space, have overlapping projects and ambitions that really mean that an innovation twin can be purposeful, can really hit the ground running right now. Now, if we look at the question of similarities in performance, we can really see that there are two peer groups of cities within each neighborhood, because you notice when you look at those cities that have the size and the scale at that whole city or metropolitan level, those cities that have become metropolitan in the way that they're run and they're led and they're managed, those cities that have got that scale of scientific assets, that level of talent pool, that maturity of technology platform, you tend to see a leading group of 6 cities in both of the UK and Korea, where there are very logical reasons to see synergies and as we mentioned, commensurability in their ability to work together with each other. And those cities you can see on the left-hand side here, Birmingham, Manchester, Leeds, Liverpool, Glasgow, and Newcastle in the UK, and Busan, Daegu, Daejeon, Gwangju, Incheon, and Ulsan. And secondly, you see a second group of agile, smaller and medium-sized cities who have particular assets, are well-led, have very strong ambitions in the smart city space, have a particular kind of industrial strategy themselves that really makes the opportunity to liaise with those who are embarking on other programs internationally very logical. Peer groups really began to stand out from the initial analysis. And then when we really looked at, well, which cities have built a program of effort to go and operate internationally, which ones have actually worked in and succeeded in participating in city networks and city-to-city partnerships in the past, which ones have some kind of track record of either their universities or their city governments or perhaps some other business leadership organizations really working and succeeding in their engagements worldwide. And we saw that 2 groups of cities really began to emerge. Among that larger group, we could see that absolutely Birmingham, Glasgow, Liverpool, and of course Belfast, very much a city for whom working internationally and building an ecosystem approach with collaborative governance and many institutions at the table were very clear. And 5 cities also emerged in Korea as well when we looked at all of the data in these areas. And finally, we really wanted to look at, in the particular technology domains where there are some real areas of focus into the next cycle, which cities are either trying to create and host technology platforms that will deliver city improvements, or are trying to really create a little ecosystem of expertise that is an economic development play, or which ones are doing both. And we try to observe through looking at the strategies of different cities, engaging with the cities and observing where the data shows emerging innovation activity in all of the new companies that are being created, all the new research initiatives that are being granted, where there are some real links between cities, because where there are links, it makes obvious potential to really explore those things. We found ones around AI, around mobility, particularly in ports, around the reimagining of retail, the role of thinking about innovation districts and smart districts. We heard from Dr. Cho earlier on that. And so through all of these three different lenses, we began to observe that actually there are, among these initial group of qualifying cities, if you like, there were particular partnerships and particular synergies emerging in a quartet of particular pairings. And you can see those here: Liverpool, Busan, Glasgow, Daegu, Birmingham, Ulsan, and Belfast and Xihong. And to mention really the Belfast and Xihong initiative, you can see that actually these are two cities who share similarities in terms of size. They are not, one is an established and mature city, and one is, as we've heard, a fast evolving, fast changing city over the last 15 years. But they both share important overlaps in terms of the capital city functions they host, the extent to which they are nationally prioritized and designated and recognized as a smart city and a smart leader. They have shared agendas around both IoT and 5G in particular. They have particular ambitions to really cluster these in certain individual locations that can be catalytic for the rest of the city and beyond. And they also have a very clear international strategy, and that I think has been really observed through all the dialogue that has since ensued. So there was really a very clear logic that emerged here, and a very strong opportunities that we'll hear more about how to explore these, the status, the appetite, and the expertise that both cities share, despite being relatively small and not the largest cities in each national system by any means. But there are many opportunities in the innovation district space, in the data management environment, and in the mobility space, where we can see huge opportunity to work more deliberately together. We also observe Liverpool and Busan as trading cities with similar scale, maritime capability and ambitions in sensors and clean energy and healthcare, and very strong place-based approach to innovation, particularly thinking about health and well-being outcomes. Birmingham and Ulsan, very much locations that have similarities in what they want to do internationally, working and leading in hydrogen and the next generation mobility question. How is it that we are going to get around in our cities? And Glasgow and Daegu, two cities that are very experienced at hosting international events and engaging internationally, but also have managed to harness their universities and other key assets to really think about the future of advanced manufacturing, of how to manage the water and energy system, think about decarbonisation in a forward-thinking way. These groups and pairings of cities have emerged to us through that mixture of data, insight and application and appetite, as Amy said, as very much opportunities to explore much more intentionally. We're excited to see how this can really be demonstrated in Belfast and Xihong. And it's back to Andrew, I think, to take it from here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tim Moonen. That was brilliant. I really like how this work links the local with the national, with the global, provides a really fantastic evidence base for helping cities understand what they are, hugely complex systems. And the most fascinating part is how you're able to take cities in different countries that looks and feels so different and really understand where the synergies are and where the opportunities for collaboration are. So I'm glad to invite back Dr. Amy Hohodl and Tim, for a round of questions. We have 15 minutes. Delighted to know that we've got some questions from the audience. So if it is okay, Amy, I'm going to start with yourself. So I think at the highest level, a nice easy question for you is, what will a successful Innovation Twins project look like in terms of the outcomes, in terms of how long this is going to last?
Great, thanks, Andrew. You know, it's really important that we understand the impact that we're seeking to have with these partnerships. This is a program. This is just the catalyst. This is just the spark. We're here to create the partnerships that will endure past this program. So really what will be successful is if we were to come back in 5 or 10 years and to see how much economic activity has been driven by these partnerships. Now, we already have the evidence base that says these are the best pairings. This is the best way to drive some of this economic activity at a city to city level. But of course, you know, we're looking at job creation. We're looking at economic growth. What would be fantastic is to come back in 5 years and see multiple research and development partnerships that will go on for the next 5 or 10 years, looking at the next phase of technology that we haven't even thought of in today's presentation. So, you know, it is a forward-thinking program. You won't see the catapult involved forever. This is really about creating that spark. We want to highlight what are the best cities, bring them together, and then look for the economic development and impact that that can bring.
Fantastic, thank you. And I think that's great because it really reflects the recently published UK government strategy looking at the Indo-Pacific region, looking at collaboration and cooperation as a global scientific superpower and how it's going to work with leading countries like South Korea over the long term in a strategic way. So that's brilliant. Tim, next for you, I'm really interested. So the overview you gave of the methodology was fantastic. Can you tell me a little bit about what makes it unique and what key indicators you use to capture this really fantastic idea of innovation in a complex system that is a city?
Thank you, Andrew. Hopefully the video will continue to work. I think really Amy hit the nail on the head earlier on when she observed that actually this is not an outside-in, top-down science dictating in a way what works. It was very much informed by all of the partnerships that do exist. There are hundreds of partnerships that UK cities and Korean cities have been partners and engagement of in the last period of time. And we have really heeded some of the lessons from those and thinking about, well, what kind of indicators matter, because not every indicator does when it makes sense to think about which cities are appropriate pairing. So we've been informed by hard insight around, of course, what kinds of economic development specialism cities have, what is their population size and their growth and change dynamic, what kinds of infrastructure assets do they really have, at what scale, what sorts of levels of inclusivity do they have. We can look at all of those measures, but we've really customized those and selected those based on what it is that cities say that is necessary, and that is capacity, the leadership, the coordination that exists in the city, the extent to which cities have an ability to think and act long term, as Amy said. And then secondly, really look at some of the innovation data that looks at companies being created, R&D being really invested in, and projects and initiatives that are really being not just proposed, but mounted and executed. This really tells you a lot about the city's ability to deliver, because after all, innovation twins are about delivery. They're about really, exactly as Amy says, creating a spirit of common endeavor that expands and endures through multiple terms of office, multiple organizations. And in the cities where you look around the world and see these pairings really thrive over 10, 15 years, it's because it has that broad base. So the indicators have been designed and selected to include judgment and an assessment of which cities have that capacity and appetite to really make this happen.
Fantastic. Great answer, Tim. And I really like the fact that this works making cities active partners and players in the innovation ecosystem. They're not these passive observers where technology and things are done to them or at them and they're blinded by science. I really like this methodology and approach. So Amy, back to you, please. So there's a really interesting question come in from the audience. It's round about security in the cities. So the question here is, security is obviously very important for public services and smart cities. How can the issue of security between these two countries be approached? And how can a program like this play into supporting that?
Great, thanks, Andrew. I mean, the question of security is a really interesting one. And in my mind, I've really translated that in kind of the modern day, even just over the past year, more towards the concept of resilience. And I think that the concept of resilience is more all-encompassing when we're thinking about security. That could be cybersecurity, it could be physical security, it could be resilience against shocks to the system. Those shocks could be natural disasters, those shocks could be environmental, those shocks could be pandemics. And so I think, I hope I don't take the question away from the person that asked it, but to me, I really think it's more about resilience. And so when we think about resilience, it's different concept than smart. There's the smart city and there's the resilient city. And I think there's a really important question here. Are those two things the same? Can smart and resilience be combined? Can you be smart without being resilient, and vice versa? And that helps to then include those questions around security. And so we really need to start bringing our thinking into this idea of smart resilience in cities. And in that way, we're really helping cities to endure against shocks to the system. And if you think about smart cities are meant to improve the quality of life. Dr. Cho said that, and that's what we're basing all of this research on. It's not about technology. Smart cities are about improving the quality of life. Resilient cities are about being able to endure shocks to the system so that services continue. It's really critical, I think, now, and James said this as well, given COVID and what we've learned, that we start to think about smart resilience and combining those two opportunities. This is an area that the Catapult has been doing a lot of thinking in and putting out some papers on, and something that I think we can also integrate in our partnerships across the UK and Korea. So hopefully I didn't take the question away there, but I really think it's about smart resilience.
Fantastic, thank you, Amy, and great answer. And yes, resilience is huge here, and I think this program's got a great role to play in supporting that agenda. Tim, across to you, please. So Amy touched upon the fact that you need to revisit these things. If we've baselined and we've benchmarked and we've looked at what currently is of these complex systems, we're looking at what's possible by doing new and interesting and innovative things. In terms of the work that you've done here, how often do you have to revisit this to kind of make sure you're on track to track impact and progress, or is this something you can turn into a continual process?
Sure, Andrew, great question. My personal observation working with many cities, thinking about how do you track long-term change, is that when you're thinking about the interventions that you want to make, policy interventions, innovative projects that perhaps can be disruptive or demonstrator in their role, and perhaps catalytic in terms of others adopting those around the city and beyond. You have to look at things in two ways. One is that the process of aggregate long-term change and performance of a city really happens over 7 to 10 years or more. It takes a whole cycle of initiative and change, a whole cycle of a whole city infrastructure redevelopment to really see that register at the macro level in terms of cities who have become better equipped to manage their future, who've become more efficient, productive, and inclusive. All of the positives we see from advanced infrastructure being embedded, those things don't just register in the big metrics overnight. It takes time to accumulate and time to really become city-wide, because we are mostly looking at city-wide aggregate performance. So you have to be patient when you're looking at that. And cities that we've seen really go over a 20 or 30 year period into becoming much more advanced and successful cities, better at retaining talent, really perhaps accommodating the industries they really look to attract. Those cities have really just recognized that you do this over decades, not months or years. On the other hand, if you're really trying to track the vitality of the partnerships and the impact of the initiatives, then you really have to work with the partners concerned, and you have to be tracking that over a period of quarters and years to really look at what kinds of commitments are really being mobilized, what sort of belief and conviction do partners outside of the core group of leaders who have started it have really observed. Because ultimately, as we say, this is cities are the great partnership initiative of mankind. And in a way, these sorts of agendas are about building that partnership capability. You need to be testing and monitoring the appetite and the believability, credibility of these activities among a wider peer group continually, and help to understand and respond to the needs that businesses have when they're going global and operating in new markets, what institutions have when they're managing the risks of operating in new ways. These things need to involve stakeholder management and clear appetite to listen, I think, if you're going to monitor correctly.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Tim. Really, really interesting. And I think it does reflect the programme strategically, long-term, keeping a track of things, while in the short to medium term, also keeping on top of things here and watching developments of this programme. So before I hand over to the next session of moderation, which will be done by Dr. Amy Hohodl, I've got one final question for you, Amy, so please don't turn off your camera. I'm going to touch upon the word you, sustainability. And this will lead into the next phase of this event today, actually. So in terms of sustainability of such a programme, how can we how do you see us ensuring sustainability of the Innovation Twins programme? And we have other cities in this audience today. Tim mentioned those high potential pairings that have been identified. What's the next steps for them? What should they be looking at and keeping track of? So over to you, and then we look forward to the next session of today.
Great, thanks, Andrew. So sustainability of the program. I mean, I think that right now we're at the beginning of this journey together. And so the real kind of learnings will come from our partnership with Belfast and Xihong. But it's built on an evidence-based, and it's built on partnerships. And so with that, I think the next steps will be a series of these partnerships. We know that collaboration is the way forward. And so I think the sustainability of this program is to have more and more and more collaboration. So we want to scale this up across as many cities as we can, both across the UK and Korea, but across our regions. I think one of the key things that will help ensure sustainability and the way that we've set up this program, and actually Dr. Cho mentioned this as well, public-private partnerships. We need industry to engage in this process. So cities need to be bought in, and they need to be supportive. The national governments need to be behind this. But this is really about growth and economic growth. And to do that, we need public-private partnerships. We need the private industry to play a strong role in building this. And with that private industry engagement and that investment that we're all looking for in our cities, that's where we'll start to see the sustainability. That's the scale up that we all talk about. We use that buzzword that we need to scale up, but it's really about testing this out in a lighthouse project and then finding the investment that helps cities grow in a broader sense across more cities. So I think that's really the sustainability component, Andrew.
Okay.
And with that,
I have a
yes.
I have a comment about your UKSK program. So basically, we think about the difference between the two countries. For example, in Korea, you know, in short times we have many successful stories about industrial revolution and urbanization. So that's the reason why our government and our industrial companies can collaborate each other very solidly. But basically, in the case of this twin program, maybe I think this approaches is based on the UK thought and UK approaches. So thinking about the dual conditions, bilateral conditions, we should know their own culture and policy characteristics and the industrial characteristics also. So basically, our companies are willing to win the game. It's like they don't think about the social problems and global issues. They focus on the money. But nowadays, the many Korean cities are matured and they're thinking about the social problems and they're thinking about the public-private partnerships. So basically, our government to support many things to improvement of our local cities. So basically, we should approach it two ways. One is the government level make a collaboration. We make a sponsorship program for these twin programs. And another thing is city itself make some good program with it's like Belfast and Xihong and Birmingham and Busan and other cities. So I like a parallel program is good for successful journey for innovation twin programs. So I think the next step, CPC and KAIA and other is important organization should thinking about the best way for collaboration, international collaboration, and how can we proceed this successful story in the future, 5 or 10 years next. Okay, that's my comment.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Cho. I really appreciate that. And I think there's a really important point here that we've developed a methodology in collaboration with these two places, but it's not something that you can just take and put in another place. It's all about the local context. And I think what you said, Dr. Cho, about improving quality of life, and James said that this is about engaging citizens. So I think we have to be very careful that we're honoring the local context as well. But I understand what you're saying around, and I think you're spot on. This requires government collaboration and sponsorship, which I think we have great backing for right now. And then this requires robust city programming. And the next step of CPC and KAIA taking that forward to find out the best way to collaborate. We really are looking forward to doing that over the next year. I appreciate that very much, Dr. Cho.
Thank you.
And I look forward to seeing you in person again soon as well. So we've been talking, I don't want to become guilty of the thing we said, that we shouldn't be talking to cities and we shouldn't be talking about cities. We should be talking with cities. So let's bring some of our city participants into the discussion right now. For the last part of our event, we'll be hearing from the cities of Belfast and Xihong. We'll see 2 presentations that show all of their exciting smart city initiatives, and hopefully we can build on that, given Dr. Cho's comments, the best way forward for collaboration and things that we can do together. And we'll also be taking some questions and answers. So as Andrew said, please pop those down into the chat function, and I'll be taking a look at those, and we'll pose those questions to our speakers at the end. So with that, may I please welcome Deborah Colville to the stage. Deborah is the City Innovation Manager and Head of Smart Cities Belfast. Deborah, always a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much for that lovely welcome, and good morning, everyone. It's great to see so many attending the launch today, and I'm particularly delighted to see our friends again and our colleagues from South Korea. Belfast is delighted to be part of this really exciting programme. As introduced, I'm Deborah Colville. I lead the City Innovation Office at Belfast City Council, and I'm the founder of the Smart Belfast programme. So just as by way of background, Belfast is the capital city of Northern Ireland. It is the 2nd largest city on the island of Ireland. And the wider, greater region, Belfast region, is home to about 1 million people, with just over 330,000 living in the urban core itself. And the city gained its wealth and reputation during the late 19th and early 20th century, when it was a global powerhouse for engineering, for shipbuilding, linen and rope making, and of course, we built the Titanic. And like many cities, and as has been mentioned earlier, we went through a period of deindustrialization. And on the next slide here, you can see that, over recent decades, we have very successfully reimagined ourselves as a city with a modern economy built on its booming service sectors. We have two great universities, as has already been mentioned, with Queen's University, a key driver of social and economic impact within the region, and who lead the UK's collaborative knowledge transfer partnerships with small to large businesses for research commercialization. We have Ulster University, the region's civic university, very much grounded in the heart of the community and renowned for its world-class teaching and research in health and life sciences, screen and media, smart manufacturing, among other things. And our digital sectors here are buoyant. This is the place to work in the UK relative to the cost of living, the average salary being £10,000 more than the average regional salary. And in 2019, 26% of all job openings were digital tech roles, the highest in the UK. And we continue to see our own businesses invest in R&D as that grows over the year on year. And we've increased our VC funding tenfold in the last 10 years. And on our next slide here, we can see that the second fastest growing knowledge economy in the UK, and we've attracted FDI with nearly 1,000 international companies choosing Belfast as their home. Our businesses, our universities have been building serious strengths in important growth sectors such as health and life sciences, fintech, filmmaking, digital media, and others. And we have really important clusters in the field of AI with significant work on core data science and cybersecurity, genomics, robotics, and computation vision. And we have an exciting new development and significant investments in regulatory technologies across a range of areas, including health, data, climate, and fintech. And just on to our next slide. In 2017, we launched the Smart Belfast programme. And our politicians and our government officials at the time recognised that as a city, we were operating in a rapidly changing environment. And in particular, we recognised that major technological change will have a profound economic and social consequence. And it's occurring across timescales that can be measured in years rather than decades. So robotics, virtual and augmented reality, edge computing, drones, data analytics, and all of these technologies coming to maturity over the next few years. And we knew that we needed to start as a city to do things differently, to think about innovation and the role that these technologies can play as we delivered our services for citizens. And here's just some of the things that over the last 3 years we have delivered. We've delivered 47 different projects, smart projects, working very closely with our universities, with our SMEs, and with our public bodies. We set a wide range of city challenges, and we leveraged funding from a range of sources. We opened up our data sets, and we give access to our people and our processes within City Council. We secured assets and street furniture, car parks, loading bays, trees, our bike infrastructure, and we developed many new solutions and tested out the deployment of those solutions in real life situations. And we've been using AI and machine learning to understand and to maximize our commercial rate base. We're using machine vision and edge computing to help our parks and open spaces and to be safe places to visit and spend time. And we used IoT technologies and data analytics to influence the investment in cycling infrastructure and to optimize the routes in the city. And we've been experimenting with last mile delivery technologies. But we've learned that the importance of putting the problem or the challenge first and making that, putting it at the heart of what we do and engaging with citizens and spending time to get the problem definition right. So putting our ambitions for our citizen first and for the economy first, and then using technology and the smart city approach to support and enable those outcomes. And we've learned a lot about collaboration, about partnership working, the use of pre-commercial procurement approaches, and having proven that the collaborative approach works, we've developed our experience of the important ingredients for starting to develop and to deliver on the vision for the city. So we're not only tackling societal issues and challenges, but we also want to use this approach as a way to support the economy, to drive up R&D and support our companies on a path towards commercialization of new innovative products. And we now have a new ambition post-COVID, which addresses our economic plans going forward and addresses our societal issues. And we have a new urban innovation framework, which we are about to go out to consultation for next week, and we hope to share that, that framework with you. Just moving on to our next slide, and just to, I suppose, highlight some of the key ambitions that we have. One of our really ambitious projects is the development of a world-class smart district. We're investing £360 million in the investment from our UK Treasury as part of a £1 billion Belfast Region City deal. And the smart district will act as a real-life urban sandbox right in the centre of our city. This will be a low-friction environment for experimentation and to test out a whole range of technologies in real city life. We'll be looking at collaboration and partnership across asset owners, providing a supportive environment. And we will be testing out fast project assembly, agile governance, and we'll be giving our businesses and our universities the means to be able to bring innovative ideas from the indoor lab into a real life scenario where we can see the impact on citizens and we can develop the policy around those technologies and the deployment of those technologies. And we're co-investing with partners in almost £500 million in relation to world-class technologies and infrastructure in that smart district. And we're hoping that that will act as a global showcase for the region's urban innovation excellence. And we'll be focusing the development on the application of innovative technologies in relation to green and net zero technologies, health and assisted living technologies, and with the development of our Healthy Living Neighbourhoods programme. And of course, focusing on the sustainable movement of people and goods. Just on our next slide there, please. Side by side with our smart district, we have an innovation district. And here our universities will work really closely with our SMEs and startups, ensuring the translation of research into business. Partners, including the UK government, are investing significantly in the establishment of a global centre for innovation, focusing on AI and across a range of areas, including health, food and agriculture. We're developing a Centre of Excellence for clinical trials, a Centre of Excellence for screen and media, building on our current strengths in screen and media, animation, AR and VR. And we're establishing a UK Centre of Excellence for digital twins with a digital twin laboratory, with an ambition to leverage Northern Ireland's distinctive strengths across sectors, including aerospace, marine and land transportation. And here in this area as well, we have our city port, who is investing multi-millions of pounds in the development of smart technologies and is on target to be one of the greenest ports in the world. Just moving on to our next slide. Our districts will be among the most digitally connected places in the world. We will be offering accessible, ubiquitous, low cost and high capacity connectivity on an architecture that encourages innovation. It will be a data-rich environment as our partners and our projects and technologies will be generating huge quantities of novel data. And we will make it available to partners in a safe, transparent and open fashion. And we are developing our city data architecture model and urban platform as we speak. Just moving on then to our next slide. And to drive through innovation activity, we have a multi-million-pound challenge fund, which will be focused very much on innovation for societal impact. We will be encouraging collaboration with industry, with research, and with our policy leads to focus on climate, mobility, energy, the future of our high street, and urban healthy living. And we look forward to running those challenge programs and opening those up and being able to collaborate with cities such as Xihong. And the next slide, really my last slide, is really looking at how we're going to make this happen. As a city, we have been able to bring together our sectors to focus on our grand challenges. We have established a permanent innovation team to drive forward the ambition, innovation, and innovative city programs. We've established a digital commissioner and someone who can speak across all levels of government and private and public sector to focus on our economic aspects of our ambition. And we've formed a city partnership with our public sector partners, private sector and industry, and our universities. All of these partners are working under MOU and a partnership agreement, investing their resources, investing their expertise, and investing their money to support innovation, setting and driving ambitious plans to ensure that as a city, we set innovation as a priority so that we remove obstacles and that we collectively drive forward on these ambitious plans. So thank you for listening, and I look forward to hearing Strong's presentation and for some questions.
Deborah, thank you. What is happening in Belfast is absolutely exciting. It's really incredible work, specifically the growth in the digital tech and the R&D, but really the fact that Smart Belfast recognized the changing environment, recognized the pace of change, and really was agile to kind of get out in front, leverage this, take advantage of it for the city, and looking at the role of innovation and how it could manage that change and how it could make it work for the benefit of cities and citizens. I think what's really important, something you said kind of in the middle there, was about a challenge-led approach. And I think that when we're talking about cities and technology and the pace of change, we really need to keep in mind that challenge-led approach, that citizens first component, not leading with the technology, understanding what the challenges are that our cities are facing, engaging with citizens on those challenges, and then looking at how technology can support it, can facilitate it. You mentioned test beds and test beds helping to create being frictionless environments. I also think sometimes technology should be it should be seamless, but it should also be invisible. If you're looking at challenge-led approaches and citizen first, you might not always see the technology in front of you. You just know that it's helping to solve that challenge that you're facing. And I think that's really critical. You also mentioned the collaboration and a bit about pre-commercial procurement to foster innovation. And I think that I won't say too much because I know that that's part of the journey you'll be going on with Xihong over the next year and looking at some of those topics as well. But to procure innovation is not the same type of procurement for a simple service. We need to look at how do we foster innovation, and certainly things like test beds can help facilitate that. So thank you, Deborah. So exciting, really. What's happening in Belfast is just fantastic. So thank you. And with that, I'd now like to turn to Xihong and welcome Mr. Yom to the stage. He is the director of the Smart City Division for the city of Xihong. Mr. Yom, I'd like to welcome you. Thank you. The floor is yours. Tell us about Xihong.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Yes, we can hear you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm Sang Young, Director of the Smart City Division at Sejong City. First of all, it's a great honor to be given an opportunity to introduce Sejong Smart City. I hope that this presentation helps you understand the smart city as a new alternative for addressing urban problems that are becoming increasingly serious and a new growth engine for Sejong City. Now, let me start by introducing Sejong City. Just please. Sejong Special Self-Governing City was founded on July 1st, 2012, making it the 7th metropolitan self-governing entity established in Korea. It was developed as a multifunctional administrative city to address the side effects of the excessive concentration of population in metropolitan areas, promote regional and balanced national development, and strengthen national competitiveness. So far, 45 central administrative agencies and 16 national research institutions have completed their relocating to Sejong City. As planned, the city is fulfilling its original function as an administrative city. At the beginning, the population of Sejong City remained at around 100,000. But as of December this year, it now exceeds 370,000. Sejong City is a planned city that will be developed under the leadership of the Korean government in 3 stages by 2030. With the goal of relocating central administrative agencies and establishing urban infrastructure, the second phase of the project was completed in 2020. The final target for 2030 is to attract an additional 500,000 people, bringing the entire population of Sejong City to 800,000. Since 2017, the Korean government has pushed ahead with the National Smart City pilot project for the purpose of building a world-class smart city from scratch by bringing all the technologies of the fourth industrial revolution into one space. Sejong City was selected as a national pilot city in 2018 through a public contest along with Eco Delta Smart City of Busan. The National Pilot City project goes beyond the existing public sector city construction model as it is being pursued as a public-private joint project in which private companies participate from the beginning of the urban beginning phase based on a creative business model. In April last year, a public contest was held to select a private business operator, which ended with the O1 consortium represented by LDCNS being selected. In December this year, the public sector represented by Sejong City and the Korea Land and Housing Corporation will join hands with the private sector represented by the O1 consortium to establish a special purpose company. This company will develop 5 to 1 smart city districts over the next 5 years and handle the operation of smart service for 10 years. As a national pilot city, Sejong Smart City plans to create an innovative industry ecosystem that combines residential, commercial, and industrial district and applied futuristic high-tech technologies on a site spanning 2.7 square kilometers, which is similar in size to the city of London. Xihong Smart City will create an innovative venture startup zone to attract various domestic and international IT companies. This zone will serve as a space for implementing and demonstrating smart technologies through a regulatory sandbox, which all sorts of regulations will be relaxed. A traffic restricted area will be designated to create a city centered around working, personal mobility, and autonomous vehicles. Accordingly, we plan to propose new lifestyles in terms of shopping, logistics, and mobility. With the revenue generated from urban development, we plan to provide smart service in 7 key areas, which are energy, culture, mobility, education, jobs, healthcare, and governance. In addition, Xihong Smart City aims to become an open city led by the private sector. Those demonstrations and trials of various smart technologies are being carried out. Let me introduce some cases briefly. Xihong City is designed to be bicycle friendly, and it has a favorable environment for the use of personal mobility devices. Accordingly, through legal and institutional improvements, we are striving to create an eco-friendly mobility environment by enabling the operation of various private shared personal mobility services. Last April, Xihong City launched a new demand-responsive transportation service called Shuttle. This is a kind of on-demand bus service in which users can designate pick up and drop off points through a mobile app, and on AI plans an optimal bus route to serve the passengers. The service cannot be adopted nationwide due to Korea's current regulations, but it is being operated in Xihong City through a regulatory sandbox. It is emerging as a new alternative for public transportation at a time when it has become difficult to increase the number of taxis and bus routes. In the future, we plan to expand the service area and scope based on empirical data. Xihong City has selected autonomous driving as the subject of its representative project. It is nurturing related industries through the establishment of a regulation-free special zone designated for self-driving cars, making a first among local governments in Korea. As a proud city, Xihong City has excellent road and information and communication infrastructure, enabling it to provide a favorable environment in which self-driving car companies can conduct tests and experiments freely. Accordingly, we are providing generous administrative support for the operation of various R&D projects, a future car research center, and self-driving car group, among others. This facilitates the technology development efforts of self-driving car companies. Xihong City was also granted a regulation-free special zone for drones, enabling companies to conduct diverse demonstration projects. In the future, drones will be used in various fields, such as logistics, delivery, firefighting, and safety. Lastly, Sejong City is planning to become a sustainable data-driven platform city. Since data is the core of smart city, Sejong City is also creating a big data platform and establishing a data-based policy and decision-making system. First of all, we built a big data hub to collect and store public data and created a system through which data is shared by all departments. In addition, by collecting and synchronizing data on the movements, consumption, and demographics of Sejong citizens, we established a digital twin virtual Sejong simulation that can simulate the movement of 370,000 people by hours and day. We are using the simulation to propose optimal data-based alternatives when making policies such as the allocation of personal mobility services, including shared bicycles, creation of new bus routes, and bridge construction, among others. This concludes my presentation on the current status of Sejong Smart City. I hope that Sejong Smart City as a national pilot city representing Korea grows into a more innovative and advanced smart city through exchange with cities around the world. Thank you.
Mr. Yum, thank you so much. Sejong, very much like Belfast, such exciting things happening right now and the pace of change. And I think that this really goes back to the comment that Dr. Cho made. These two cities are not identical. There are different local contexts that we need to understand. And the City Innovation Twin program is not about pairing identical cities. It's about pairing cities that have something to share with each other, that are on a similar journey, that have raised their hands to participate in this learning process around innovation and the pace of change for innovation, and really about similar ambitions for the cities. And so I think that that's a really critical point, that we're not pairing cities that are the same. We're pairing cities that are different, but that will grow and learn together because of the ambitions they have. And I think that when you look at and compare the city of Sejong with the city of Belfast, you see some of those similarities. Well, you see a lot of those similarities in the ambition and pace of change. Mr. Yum, you started your presentation with the tagline, nature, people, technology, and connecting those. And that's very similar to what Deborah showed us in the presentation around Belfast, leveraging nature, people first approach, and technology as the facilitator of that. And so there really are very much a lot of connections between these two cities. Similarly, you both mentioned how important test beds are, and that regulatory sandboxes and places to test this innovation are critical. You also both mentioned open cities with private participation and the need for investment across the cities by different participants in the cities. And I think that we continue to see that theme from Professor Monks to Dr. Taplin to Dr. Cho through our city presentations around those three areas that James talked about. Systems integration, that's coming through very clear with the city of Sejong, data hubs, digital twins, and the idea of systems integrations, collaboration across the participants within the city, collaboration across city to city relationships as well. And then third, that idea of net zero and creating healthier, greener cities. Thank you, Mr. Yum. I very much appreciate your presentation and the participation of Sejong in this program. Now, Deborah, if you could join us once again, we have a couple of questions for both yourself and Dr. Yam. We'll keep the Q&A brief. I mean, I think really what's important here is a discussion. And so I would have the same question for both of you, and would like to hear perhaps both of your perspectives from your cities on what you hope to gain out of this partnership. We've learned about both of your amazing cities and the pace of change. We'd really like to know what is driving you to participate in the Xihong Belfast partnership, and what do you hope to gain out of that partnership, both over the next year, but in the longer term? So Deborah, if I could pose that to you first, that would be great.
Yes, thank you. Well, look, first of all, I'd maybe just say that we always say in Belfast that innovation is in our DNA. We have a strong history of world firsts. And I know, of course, that innovation is really important to South Korea, and Xihong is a good example of that already. And we very much believe, and I think have demonstrated how collaborative innovation, and in particular working internationally as well, is really important to finding new and innovative solutions to urban problems. But both of the cities really have a lot to offer each other. And what we would like to do is to really understand what the obstacles are and the hurdles that companies from Xihong would face when trying to work with Belfast and trying to export to Northern Ireland. And so we would seek to look at how we could remove those obstacles, and of course vice versa. In terms of technology development, we have growing strengths in health and life science, in screen and media, advanced manufacturing, and the application of Industry 4.0. We're world leading in terms of core data science, cybersecurity, and other areas as well. So we would really be looking at how we can collaborate across some of these strengths that we have in these areas of interest. And of course, we would like to look at, from a research and academic point of view as well, how we can make similar links with our universities between Xihong and Belfast. We're very excited about the potential of collaborative innovation and partnership working, and it's something that we've become very experienced at. So we would be really keen to share some of the ways in which we've been able to make things work and happen across our different sectors. And we're really interested in engaging with Xihong in terms of how they have engaged with their citizens. And we're quite experienced now at co-creation and co-design with our citizens of programs and projects at community and citizen level. So we'd be really interested in learning how Xihong has adopted these technologies, the impact it's had on citizens, and of course, and very much in particular, looking at the data ethics side and how we can empower citizens to be involved in giving up their data for the greater good. So we're really interested from a technology point of view. We really want to share the strengths that we have, and we want to really learn from the strengths that there are in Xihong. But we also are really interested then in some of those foundations that we need to put in place and share our learning on that in terms of building the smart city, but also very much on how we make partnerships work and how we put the citizen at the heart of what we do, and how we can design our programs around better outcomes for citizens.
Deborah, I think that's really helpful, because it really gives us the city perspectives. I mean, we're talking about big ideas, we're talking about technology and innovation and growth, but cities are facing practical issues here. You said, how do we make this work? How do we make this happen? Those are the types of practical, tangible things we want to learn from each other. So we're all bought into the big ideas, but cities are faced with the practicalities of implementation. And so you talked about some really practical things, removing obstacles. You want their businesses to come to Belfast. You want Belfast businesses to be able to go there. This is about doing business. It's very practical. So how do we learn how to make those environments more friendly? Both of the cities have a real talent and expertise in across different types of technology. So where can we share those? But then there's lasting research and development partnerships. So I really appreciate the practical, I mean, that is, cities all around the world. Yes, we're talking about two very different cities in the UK and Korea, but I am quite sure from my experience that this is what cities all around the world are facing. How do I make this happen? Let's learn from each other how you've done it and how we've done it. Thank you very much for that. Mr. Yum, I really have kind of the same question. How do you see this partnership progressing? What are you hoping to get out of it? What are you most excited about?
앞서 말씀 주셨던 것처럼 스마트 시티가 지속 가능성을 가지기 위해서는 이제 민간 부문의 활성화가 중요하다고 생각을 합니다. 그러기 위해서 벨파스트와 세종시의 협력은 이런 기업이나 민간 부문이 활성화될 수 있는데 중요한 역할을 할 수 있다고 보고 있습니다. 기술적인 교류뿐만 아니고 더 나아간다면은 다양한 기술 실증도 가능할 수 있다고 보고 있습니다. 한국 같은 경우는 많은 기업들이 기술 개발을 하고도 기술 실증을 이제 실제로 충분히 못하거나 데이터를 수집하지 못하는 경우가 많이 있는데, 좀 환경이 다른 이제 벨파스트 같은 곳에서도 또 실증을 한다면은 기업들 입장에서는 굉장히 그 기술을 좀 더 발전시키고 많은 데이터들을 얻을 수 있는 기회가 될 수 있기 때문에 예를 들자면 이런 교류를 통해서 기업들이 활성화될 수 있는 그런 계기가 될 수 있다고 보고 있습니다. 또한 벨파스트의 그런 다양한 민간 부문들이 또 세종에서도 다양한 또 실증 사업들을 할 수 있고 그 과정에서 시민들이 새로운 기술들을 접할 수 있기 때문에 이런 측면에서 민간 부문이 활성화될 수 있는 계기를 만들 수 있다고 보고 있습니다. 그리고 이게 좀 더 나아간다면은 스마트 시티가 단순히 이제 공공부문 주도가 아닌 민간과 함께 활성화가 돼서 지속 가능성을 가지는 그런 장점을 가질 수 있다고 보고 있습니다.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yama. I appreciate these types of partnerships stimulate activity. They stimulate investment. When we see Belfast companies being deployed in Korea and Korean companies being deployed in Belfast, it helps those companies to show what their product is capable of. We're showcasing the best of both cities, and that attracts investment, that leads to scaling, and that leads to growth for both of our cities. It goes back to that practical application. We want to show the practical application and benefit of both of our technologies, and we want to showcase them around the world. So these types of partnerships can really be a showcase, but can catalyze new investment. It's exciting and exciting because it serves citizens first, and that's what investors want to see. Thank you to both of you. I'm really looking forward to seeing the partnership of Belfast and Xihong and working with you over the next year. I think it's going to be incredibly exciting. I hope we all get to see each other in person as well. Thank you. And now we have a closing. We're very near the end of our presentation. And so I'm going to ask two of our esteemed guests to join us now. We have a closing. If Mr. Graham and Ambassador Ree can join us, we'll have a closing comments. First from Belfast, Mark Graham, Regional Director, Trade and Investment, Northeast Asia, Invest Northern Ireland. Mr. Graham, if you can join us, and we'll pass the floor over to you.
Thank you very much, Amy. Good morning, good evening, Hanaseo, depending on where you are today. Firstly, I'd like to express my thanks to the contributors today for some super presentations from which I think we all learned a lot. Also, I must thank the organizers for putting everything together and hosting a great launch event. And of course, for having me on today and inviting us to participate in the project. This is a project I'm generally excited about being able to contribute to. Being from Northern Ireland and having worked with Korean companies for the past 15 years, I've got a real affinity for South Korea and the people I've worked with there. Frankly, I can't think of a better partnership than the one that will develop between Xihong and Belfast. We've got a real opportunity here to nourish international relations. Just to give you an idea of who we are, Invest Northern Ireland is an economic development agency. Our presence here in Northeast Asia is relatively new, and currently we've got a small office with a couple of staff based at the British Embassy in Tokyo. But we're expanding and hope to have staff on the ground in South Korea early next year, based with our colleagues in the British Embassy in Seoul. So this twinning project is very timely, and we hope to be able to make a valuable on-the-ground contribution when the time comes. Being from Belfast, you maybe think I'm biased, but the city of Belfast and Northern Ireland generally has a tremendous amount going for it. International investment is booming. We have over 1,100 international investors, 70% of which choose to reinvest. We've already heard in Deborah's fantastic presentation the successes and stats that make us world leading in many sectors such as tech, the knowledge economy, R&D, and innovation. This is due to many things such as world-class academia with a strong focus on innovation and R&D, a highly skilled workforce, and a highly accessible location. I look forward to engaging and learning alongside our partners in Xihong. I know from Mr. Yom's great presentation that Xihong have many strong synergies with Belfast in innovation, tech, and academia. So I look forward to playing a part in forging those bonds between the two cities. Thanks again to everyone for attending today, and many thanks to everyone working hard to make this happen. And I look forward to the path ahead. Thank you. Kamsahamnida.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. And now if I can welcome Ambassador Rhee to the stage, please, for our final remarks. Ambassador Rhee.
Thank you. As time limited, my intervention will be very brief. At the outset, I should like to express my sincere appreciations to UKPEIS, CPC, IUK, KAIA, and City of Belfast, who did such excellent work to show us how to find, figure out, and realize the innovation twins at the local levels between Korea and UK. On this occasion, representing the leadership of the Sejong City, declare its great expectations that this program, as just launched, will bring in a concrete success through innovative, effective, and substantive the cooperation project, for which I am indeed sure Sejong and Belfast will have to go forward as front runners in tandem with each other. My city, Sejong, which is the de facto capital of South Korea, like Canberra City, Australia, stands for 21st urban concept that's most green, sustainable, human-centered smart cities, and furthermore, open toward the whole world and tomorrow. For instance, I'm so happy to inform you, my city already started smart city constructions in a sector of the cities. And the coming year, we are going to begin in the city the public service of self-driving cars at the level 4, even on the commercial basis, and to prepare to host academia to the joint campus and to complete all the city regeneration projects. At this moment, I have to confess that, as exactly reflected in the report, South Korea and UK are surely the best matches, and Sejong and Belfast are in the area the best pairing when taken into consideration all the relevant aspects. With this launching, there are our obligations before us to come up with concrete successful results. And we hereby commit to our incessant efforts to pave the way for innovation allies between South Korea and UK, as well as Sejong and Belfast, whose coupling surely to spread their success story to others therein. Finally, so last and not least, I thank all of you very much indeed. And even though a little earlier, but I wish you happy Christmas and happy New Year. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Ambassador Ri, kamsahamnida, kamsahamnida. Thank you. And happy holidays to you as well. And I agree with you. The South Korean UK pairing and Sejong Belfast pairing is really the best, fantastic. I think we'll see amazing things over the next year. And with that, we're at the near the end. If we can go to the next slide, get out your QR code readers so that you can download the report that we've been talking about throughout this entire presentation. So if you link there, and there's also a link in the chat, you can get to the copy of our report for just phase 1. Remember, we're just embarking now on an exciting phase 2. So get your copy of the report there. I see one question in the chat, in the Q&A, about how do other cities get involved? And of course, that is the goal of the program. So if you are in Korea, we'd like you to contact our embassy there, and you can talk to Gareth Davies about how other cities can get involved. If you're in the UK, please contact Andrew Coburn. His email is on the screen about how you can get involved. The point of this program is to scale it up across other cities. So we would really welcome your participation. And finally, I just want to reiterate all of the thank yous that the ambassador also said. Mullet, Bays, the support of our national governments is critical to the success of this program. To Innovate UK and Kaya, our innovation agencies that are driving it, to Sejong and Belfast, who are implementing it on the ground, and to all of my colleagues at Connected Places Catapult, thank you for the work that you're doing. And with that, on behalf of CPC, I would like to thank all of our speakers and all of our attendees for joining today. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. See you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you soon.